Before diving into this story, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe, because here, every story is a new emotion you won't want to miss. Victoria Blake had always been meticulous, precise, and fiercely independent. Her life in New York City had been a delicate balance of ambition and control until the day she discovered Ethan Carter's betrayal. For 3 years, he had been her partner in business and in love, or so she had thought. The revelation had come not through a whispered confession, but through an anonymous email containing photographs that shattered every illusion she had built around him. Ethan wasn't just unfaithful. He had manipulated situations to his advantage, betraying her trust at every step. Victoria felt a storm of anger and heartbreak, but she did what she always did best. She planned. Revenge, she decided, would be her weapon. She moved into the penthouse she had bought months before, overlooking the city skyline with a view that was as sharp and cold as her thoughts. She spent her days dissecting Ethan's patterns, analyzing his associates, and tracking every move he made. Her plan wasn't impulsive. It was intricate, requiring patience and precision. Victoria wanted not just to punish him, but to reclaim the power he had stolen from her. And as the nights grew longer and her coffee grew stronger, she imagined the moment of his downfall, humiliation, exposure, and finally closure. Yet life, as Victoria was about to learn, had a cruel sense of irony. Her first encounter after the betrayal wasn't with Ethan, but with someone who would unsettle her meticulously structured world. At an exclusive art exhibition, Victoria met Lucas Anderson, a charismatic and enigmatic philanthropist known for his work in urban restoration and charity initiatives. Tall, with a smile that could disarm the most guarded hearts, Lucas exuded warmth that Victoria hadn't realized she craved. He didn't know about Ethan, about her pain, or her plan for revenge. He was simply there, genuine and unassuming, and the first spark of human connection she had felt since the betrayal ignited unexpectedly. Their conversation started casually about the art, the city, and mundane topics, but there was a magnetic pull between them that neither could deny. Victoria found herself laughing, a sound that had been buried under months of anger and planning. Lucas listened with interest, asked thoughtful questions, and, without trying, made her feel seen in a way Ethan never had. For the first time in months, Victoria allowed herself to forget the bitterness, if only for a moment. That night, she returned to her penthouse with an unsettling mix of confusion and intrigue. Lucas had no place in her carefully plotted revenge, but something in her heart whispered that he might. The following days were consumed by her plan. She researched, made discreet inquiries, and subtly undermined Ethan's position in his business empire. Each move was calculated to hurt him financially and socially, but every step brought an unexpected complication. Lucas appeared in her life again, this time at a charity gala she attended reluctantly. He approached her with that same effortless charm, asking about her projects, genuinely interested in her thoughts. She tried to push him away, reminding herself that love was a distraction and revenge required singular focus. Yet she noticed the way her pulse quickened, the way her lips curved at his jokes, and the way her chest tightened when he lingered near her, his presence disarming her defenses in ways she hadn't anticipated. Ethan, unaware of the full extent of Victoria's machinations, continued his own schemes, attempting to court influence and manipulate colleagues. Victoria watched him, a mixture of hatred and satisfaction coursing through her veins. But each time she prepared to confront him directly, she found her mind wandering to Lucas. She began questioning herself. Was this betrayal consuming her life to the point that she couldn't see the possibility of healing? Could she actually allow herself to feel something again? Something she had buried under anger and resentment? One evening, as the city lights flickered like distant stars, Victoria's carefully constructed world began to crumble in unexpected ways. A gala event she had organized to publicly showcase a project that subtly undermined Ethan as influence ended in chaos. Ethan arrived uninvited, charming the press and society figures with a manipulative smile that enraged her. She confronted him quietly, words sharp but controlled. "You underestimated me," she said, her voice a dangerous whisper. Ethan laughed, leaning close, oblivious to the consequences of his arrogance. "Underestimate you? Never. You've always been brilliant, Victoria. Just a little predictable." Her pulse spiked at his words, not with fear, but with the strange, unwelcome pang of something she hadn't anticipated desire, even amid fury. She wanted to strike, to humiliate him publicly, yet a part of her mind-tired, bruised, and unexpectedly tender questioned the cost of her revenge. As she left the gala, her thoughts were a tangle of fury, strategy, and curiosity. Lucas had been there too, watching from the corner with concern etched across his face. Their eyes met, and in that brief moment, Victoria realized something terrifying. Her plan for revenge was beginning to clash with something she had thought dead within her hope. Back in the solitude of her penthouse, she stared out over the city, the lights reflecting the turmoil in her heart. Her plan was not complete, and Ethan remained vulnerable, yet Lucas's smile haunted her thoughts. The very idea of love, of trusting someone again, seemed impossible, yet intoxicating. Victoria knew one thing with absolute clarity. Her life was no longer hers alone. Two forces tugged at her vengeance, and a love she didn't dare admit to herself. And in that delicate, perilous balance, the seeds of a storm were sown. One that would force her to confront the deepest desires of her heart and the darkest parts of her past. The city slept beneath her, unaware of the battles being waged in the minds and hearts of its inhabitants. Victoria understood that the path ahead would be treacherous, that betrayal and desire could not coexist peacefully. Yet even in the chaos, she felt a thrill she had not experienced in years. The revenge she had plotted for months now felt strangely fragile, threatened by a man she had only just met, and by feelings she had never allowed herself to entertain. The night was far from over, and the next move would define everything. But one thing was certain: nothing would be simple, and nothing would be predictable. As dawn threatened the horizon with pale light, Victoria made a silent promise to herself. She would continue her plan, meticulously, ruthlessly, but she would also watch, carefully, as the unexpected entered her life. Lucas was a variable she had not accounted for, a force that might undo everything or redefine everything. She didn't know whether to fear him or trust him, but she knew this. The story had only just begun. And in the tangled web of betrayal, ambition, and unforeseen desire, the lines between revenge and love were beginning to blur in ways Victoria could not yet comprehend. The following weeks became a dangerous game of strategy, emotion, and unintended vulnerability. Victoria immersed herself fully in her plan, exploiting every weakness Ethan had shown. Yet the presence of Lucas in her life continued to unsettle her. Every encounter with him was electric, a subtle brush of hands at an art gallery, shared laughter at charity events, a fleeting look in a crowded room. Each moment, though seemingly insignificant, chipped away at the armor she had built around her heart. She began to wonder if she could truly execute her revenge without being consumed by her own growing feelings. Ethan, on the other hand, remained oblivious to the depth of Victoria's schemes. He believed himself untouchable, secure in his manipulations, confident that she would eventually falter. But Victoria was meticulous. She quietly leaked insider information that undermined his business deals, subtly discredited him in front of influential investors, and used her network of allies to erode the foundation of his empire. Every victory felt like a balm, a quiet justice for the months of betrayal and heartbreak she had endured. And yet, every triumph was bittersweet, because Lucas's presence reminded her that life was not only about strategy, it was about connection, intimacy, and trust, things she had long forsaken. One evening, Lucas invited Victoria to a private dinner at a hidden rooftop garden he had restored as part of his urban projects. The city stretched beneath them, lights twinkling like distant galaxies. She had intended to decline, but something in her resisted. As she ascended to the rooftop, she felt a strange mix of anticipation and apprehension. Lucas greeted her with a warm smile that made her pulse quicken despite her careful control. The dinner was effortless, the conversation flowing naturally. Lucas shared stories of his upbringing, his passion for rebuilding communities, and his belief in the potential for people to change. For the first time, Victoria allowed herself to be vulnerable, speaking candidly about the past betrayals that had shaped her. Lucas listened without judgment, his eyes steady, understanding, and kind. That night, beneath a sky filled with stars, Victoria realized the depth of her feelings. It terrified her because she knew that love could make her vulnerable in ways revenge never could, but she also knew that ignoring it was impossible. She returned home, her thoughts a whirlwind of strategy, longing, and self-recrimination. Could she allow herself to love again when every instinct screamed caution? Could she forgive the past, even as she plotted to punish Ethan? Ethan's response to her maneuvers came suddenly and unpredictably. He confronted her in his sleek office, his usual arrogance tempered by a rare flicker of uncertainty. "Victoria," he said, leaning back in his leather chair, "I know what you've been doing." His voice was calm, but the underlying tension was unmistakable. She met his gaze steadily, refusing to show the swirl of fear and anticipation within her. "I'm always aware," she replied evenly. Ethan smirked, a dangerous glint in his eyes. "Then perhaps it's time we settle this?" Personally, the ambiguity in his tone sent a shiver down her spine. She had expected confrontation, but not this mixture of challenge and charm. Victoria left the office with a renewed sense of urgency. Her plan had to accelerate. Ethan was clever, unpredictable, and capable of striking back with equal force. But the thought of Lucas, of the warmth and authenticity he offered, made her reconsider her approach. Could revenge and love coexist, or were they inherently at odds? Her nights became restless, her dreams haunted by flashes of Ethan's calculated smirks and Lucas's earnest gaze. Then came the unexpected twist. A critical meeting was scheduled where Ethan intended to secure a lucrative contract that would restore his standing. Victoria infiltrated the gathering under the guise of a consultant, her presence unnoticed until she subtly redirected the conversation, exposing weaknesses in Ethan's proposal. Investors began to question his reliability, and the deal teetered on collapse. Ethan's fury was barely contained, yet he maintained a facade of professionalism. Victoria observed quietly, her pulse steady, but inside, she felt a tremor of exhilaration. Victory was within reach, but so was danger. Lucas, witnessing her composed maneuvering, confronted her afterward. "Victoria," he said quietly, eyes searching hers, "I see what you're doing. Are you sure this is who you want to be?" His words struck her, a mixture of accusation and concern. She wanted to deflect, to remind him that this was about justice, not identity, but the truth lingered unspoken. "I'm doing what I have to," she replied, voice controlled. He reached out, a gentle touch on her arm, and she felt a warmth she hadn't known she could still experience. "And what if the cost is you?" he asked softly. The question echoed in her mind long after he left, haunting every calculation she made. Amid this turmoil, Ethan escalated his efforts. He attempted to manipulate mutual contacts, spread subtle rumors, and even tried to isolate Victoria from her allies. The pressure mounted, and she realized that victory would require not only strategy but courage beyond anything she had anticipated. The risk was greater and the stakes higher, as her growing attachment to Lucas complicated every move. She found herself facing choices that tested both her intellect and her heart. Could she achieve revenge without destroying the possibility of love? Could she protect herself while letting someone in? In a moment of fragile clarity, Victoria decided to confront her emotions head-on. She arranged a quiet evening with Lucas in a small, intimate cafe tucked away from the city's chaos. There, under soft lights, she let herself speak honestly, admitting her fears, her anger, and the strange, unexpected pull she felt toward him. Lucas listened, patience and empathy in every gesture. The tension between them shifted subtly, from curiosity to something deeper, a connection that neither had anticipated. For the first time, Victoria felt hope mingling with desire, a dangerous but thrilling combination, yet the shadow of Ethan lingered. He had discovered a crucial piece of Victoria's strategy, a flaw that could unravel weeks of careful planning. One night, she returned home to find her penthouse subtly breached, an anonymous warning left on her desk, a reminder that her revenge game was far from over. The realization hit her hard. Ethan would not yield, and the line between safety and vulnerability was razor thin. Victoria knew she had to act quickly, balancing precision with instinct, and the presence of Lucas added a new layer of complexity. Love, she realized, was no longer a distraction, it was a potential vulnerability that could either save or destroy her. The tension escalated further when a gala hosted by Ethan drew Victoria into a confrontation in the public eye. He approached her with that familiar, infuriating charm, attempting to belittle her while concealing his unease. Victoria responded with poise, subtly exposing truths to onlookers that questioned his credibility. Lucas, watching from a distance, intervened with quiet support, his presence grounding her in a way that surprised them both. The collision of ambition, betrayal, and attraction reached a crescendo, and Victoria felt the fragile threads of control begin to fray. She realized that the final moves in this dangerous game would not be dictated solely by strategy, they would be influenced by heart, desire, and the unpredictable force of love. By the end of the evening, as the city hummed beneath them and the night air carried a hint of impending change, Victoria understood the reality she had to face. Revenge and love were entwined in ways she could not yet control. Ethan remained a threat, unpredictable and cunning, but Lucas represented a possibility, a path toward redemption, connection, and healing. The next steps would be decisive, fraught with danger, and deeply personal. Victoria knew the stakes had never been higher, and the choices she made now would determine not only her victory over betrayal, but the possibility of a love she had never dared to imagine. And so, standing alone on the balcony of her penthouse, the lights of the city stretching endlessly before her, Victoria made a silent vow. She would finish what she had started with Ethan, but she would not allow herself to destroy what might bloom with Lucas. The battle lines were drawn, the emotional stakes higher than ever, and the final act of this story, where love and revenge collided, was rapidly approaching. Every move mattered, every choice carried weight, and Victoria felt the full intensity of a storm that could either shatter her or transform her life forever. The night whispered promises of danger and desire, and she knew one truth above all: nothing would remain the same. The tension that had gripped Victoria for months reached a breaking point. Ethan, sensing that his empire and his control over her was slipping, resorted to reckless maneuvers. He began to manipulate media outlets, sending whispers of scandal into the city's social and business circles. The subtle games Victoria had played to dismantle his influence suddenly escalated into a full-blown war of reputation. Every decision had consequences, every step a calculated risk, and the shadows of betrayal loomed larger than ever. Yet, amidst the chaos, Lucas remained her constant, the one grounding presence who reminded her of what she was fighting for, not just revenge, but the chance at love and the possibility of reclaiming herself. Victoria knew the final confrontation with Ethan was inevitable. She studied him relentlessly, analyzing his patterns, his associates, his weaknesses. It wasn't just a battle for business dominance anymore. It was a fight for dignity, closure, and the right to rebuild her life on her own terms. Lucas, perceptive and protective, urged her to consider caution, reminding her that true victory didn't require destroying herself in the process. His presence, calm yet compelling, offered clarity amid the storm of fury and heartache. She realized that he was no longer just an ally. He had become the center of her emotional world, a force she could not ignore, no matter how dangerous the path became. The climax arrived on a night drenched in tension and uncertainty. Ethan had orchestrated a gala under the guise of reconciliation, an event where the city's elite would witness the supposed reunion of two former partners. Victoria arrived, composed and radiant, knowing that every interaction would be scrutinized, every word weighed. Ethan approached, his charm and arrogance intact, but Victoria was ready. With precision, she exposed the truths he had hidden, the manipulations, the betrayals, and the deceit he had relied upon for so long. Investors, colleagues, and social elites saw him for what he truly was. Ethan's facade cracked, the confidence he had worn so effortlessly shattered before the very audience that had once idolized him. Yet as she stood there, victorious in her long-planned revenge, Victoria felt an unexpected pull toward Lucas. He approached quietly, a steady presence amid the chaos, and their eyes met. In that gaze, she saw not only understanding but an unspoken promise, a future untainted by betrayal, a life rebuilt on trust, respect, and love. The intensity of the moment was almost overwhelming, but Victoria embraced it fully, allowing herself to be vulnerable, to let go of the anger that had defined her for months. The realization hit her with the force of a revelation. Revenge had been necessary, but it had only prepared her for something far more profound: love. Ethan, humiliated yet defiant, attempted one last manipulation, but Victoria, fortified by her experiences and her connection with Lucas, met his challenge with calm resolve. She had anticipated his moves, prepared contingencies, and ensured that the outcome would no longer hinge on his whims. Lucas, quietly observing, supported her without overshadowing her victory. Together, they had navigated the storm, balancing intellect and heart, strategy and vulnerability. Ethan, confronted with the full consequences of his actions, left the gala defeated, stripped of power and influence, a cautionary figure of arrogance undone by both cunning and conscience. In the days that followed, Victoria and Lucas found themselves navigating a new chapter 1 filled not with schemes or shadows, but with discovery and intimacy. They spent long afternoons walking the city streets, talking about dreams and fears, exploring the potential of a love that had emerged from unexpected circumstances. Victoria discovered in Lucas not just a romantic partner, but a companion who respected her strength, cherished her independence, and encouraged her to grow beyond the confines of her past. She realized that the love she felt was not a distraction from life's battles, but a force that enhanced her resilience, her clarity, and her capacity for joy. Victoria also reflected on her journey, the pain of betrayal, the thrill of revenge, and the unexpected emergence of love. Each chapter had taught her valuable lessons. Trust could be rebuilt, the heart could heal, and strength was not merely in control or victory, but in the courage to embrace vulnerability. She had confronted her fears, faced the consequences of her actions, and discovered that forgiveness, though complex, was a gift not for the betrayer, but for herself. It allowed her to move forward, unburdened and open to possibility. Lucas, for his part, became an integral part of her life, not as a savior, but as an equal partner. Their love was a partnership of trust, passion, and mutual respect, tempered by the challenges they had endured. Together, they celebrated successes, supported each other's ambitions, and created a sanctuary where honesty and affection thrived. Victoria felt a profound gratitude, not only for Lucas, but for the entire journey that had led her to this point. Revenge had been the crucible, but love had been the revelation, the unexpected reward that transformed her life. As the city lights shimmered beneath them one quiet evening, Victoria and Lucas stood together on the balcony of her penthouse. She reflected on the long, turbulent path that had brought her here, the heartbreak, the anger, the calculated plans, and the moments of unexpected connection that had changed everything. Lucas gently took her hand, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they now shared. She realized that her story, once defined by betrayal and fury, had evolved into one of redemption, hope, and enduring love. Victoria knew that challenges would arise, they always did, but she also understood that she no longer faced them alone. Together, she and Lucas had transformed pain into understanding, strategy into trust, and revenge into a love that was profound, resilient, and enduring. The storm of the past had passed, leaving clarity, passion, and a future filled with possibility. Victoria had not only reclaimed her life, but had discovered that the greatest victory of all was the ability to love again, fully and fearlessly. In the end, Victoria and Lucas's love became more than a story of romance. It was a testament to resilience, courage, and the transformative power of connection. The betrayal that had once seemed insurmountable was now a distant memory, a catalyst that had forged strength and revealed the depths of the heart's capacity for renewal. And as they watched the city below, intertwined and unafraid, Victoria finally understood the ultimate truth. Love, when allowed to bloom, could turn even the darkest desire for revenge into a story of hope, healing, and extraordinary happiness. The night wrapped around them like a soft, protective embrace. Victoria rested her head against Lucas's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, the warmth of his presence, and the quiet certainty that they had emerged from chaos, not only victorious, but profoundly changed. Every tear, every act of cunning, every moment of hesitation had led to this, an unexpected, enduring, and all-consuming love. The journey from betrayal to reconciliation, from strategy to surrender, from revenge to romance, was complete. And in that completion lay the promise of countless new beginnings, a life reclaimed, and a love that would endure beyond any shadow of the past.